Things have been particularly crazy the last few months. You may notice a new studio space. I moved into a new house. I'm gonna have a studio and office tour because those are actually two separate rooms now. I'm gonna have a video on that stuff coming soon, but there's a few things I need to finish up before I show it off. Between moving, my personal life, and work, I've been feeling very overwhelmed. There's a bunch of stuff happening work-wise in the background that I'm really excited about, but it's just a lot to handle. Plus moving and plus personal stuff on top of that, it's just, there's a lot going on. So I've been feeling very overwhelmed. And because of that, I have had stuff fall through the cracks. You know, I test out a lot of apps and stuff like that. And I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, where do I put this thing? Where do I put that? Just wasn't good. This video is sponsored by Akiflow. Let's get into it. So one day I sat down and I wrote out my productivity system. Where things go. Where do I take notes? Where do I put tasks? How do I, track tasks? How am I tracking projects? How am I going to track research? All sorts of different stuff. I just sat down and I basically wrote documentation on my personal system. And this kind of helped me reset. Now, the interesting part of this is I thought I needed a complete reset. I deleted all the apps off of the home screens of my devices, but the turns out was my core apps actually stayed the same. They didn't really change, but how I was using them, that changed. So when I boiled down my system, I realized there are two pillars to it. And the first is all about note-taking. I'm the kind of person that if I don't write something down, I'm going to forget about it. There's absolutely zero chance I will remember it. So taking notes on house stuff, personal stuff, work stuff is a must. The app I use is Obsidian. Now, I've been promising a guide to Obsidian forever. It got put on the back burner because I've been planning this move and all that stuff, but I have started working on that video. I just thought this video needed to come first and then the Obsidian video will come. I want to say before we get too into the weeds about this, you don't have to use the same apps I'm using to be productive. Everyone's brains works different. So find what works for you. The app itself doesn't make you productive. It's you doing the task, doing the work. That's what makes you productive. And none of these AI-infused apps are going to 10x your productivity like they claim. You need to find something that works for you. Now, for me, when it comes to note-taking and writing and research and all of that stuff, Obsidian is perfect. It's just a bunch of text files. There's no lock-in and no weird format. It's just plain text that can parse Markdown, which is perfection for me. What makes Obsidian really interesting to me is its support for third-party plugins and theming options. There is a lot you can do with it, but I'm going to save that for the Obsidian video. Now, to me, digital note-taking will always be superior over physical note-taking. You can search your notes really easily with any decent note-taking app. You never run out of space writing. Plain text files are so small, keeping thousands of them costs you next to no drive space. Plus, my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. Now, I'm a big believer in the capture everything method. A lot of what I do is kind of loosely based on the GTD method, and I kind of, throw some stuff out that I think is not necessarily and tweak some stuff to make it fit me. But what I mean by capture everything is whether it's big or small, you write it down. For example, when I moved from my old studio to my new studio, I knew I was going to have to hang up the sound panels. And to speed things up, I just went ahead and measured the screw hole distance for the sound panels. So I knew what it would just be right off the bat. So when I was starting to bring stuff into this new studio, I would know where to place the sound panels. Not something earth-shattering at all, but ultimately it was very helpful to me to know that the screw holes for the sound panels are 14 inches apart. I also keep documentation on the house, like information about the pest control person, the gardener, the water filter on the refrigerator, that kind of thing. But then I keep ongoing notes as well, like stuff I want to cover here in videos, or stuff I'd like from Apple, or furniture for the house or office or whatever. Anything of note gets noted. Now, I also used to delete notes all the time. I'd finish with a certain project and then just delete it. And it actually started to bite me a couple of times. I'd want to go back and reference something and that note was gone, so I'd have to do the research again. Now I keep everything until I am 100% sure I am done with it. So, for example, a way I knew I was done with something, the warranty information on my washer and dryer. I just deleted that because when we moved, we sold my washer and dryer. Didn't need it anymore. Got something else. For the most part, it doesn't cost you anything to keep a note, especially if the app has good search. Now, one big issue with Obsidian is it's not fast at quickly jumping into a note and creating something. The app Drafts is the gold standard for that. I built a shortcut for quickly capturing my thoughts and notes, and it's called Capture Cut. On my iPhone 15 Pro, it's part of the menu of shortcuts that appears when you trigger the action button. I also keep this shortcut in the dock of my iPad. With this shortcut, I can write a note and it gets saved into a folder called Quick Notes. This way I'm not fussing with the folder structure when I'm just trying to quickly capture something and move on. When I have time, I will come back and deal with that note. That could be saving it into the proper folder, adding more information, or just dealing with it in whatever way. If I trigger this shortcut with a Safari page open, it will ask if I want to save the URL of that page to the note. This is really handy for me. If I find an app I want to talk about or a piece of hardware I want to cover, I can save it as a link and add some thoughts to it in that moment. I'll go ahead and link to that shortcut and everything else I mentioned in the description below. Now, because I work from home, my iPhone is probably the device I actually use the least, but it's an important capture device for me. When I'm out, I use this to quickly write down ideas or take notes of something important. It's obviously where I view stuff like grocery lists when I'm shopping, or information I may need at the hardware store. When I find something, I run Capture Cut right from the action button. My 12.9-inch iPad Pro is my main computer. This is where I work all day long. In fact, I don't have a Mac. I haven't had a Mac for probably about a year now since Final Cut for the iPad came out. So whether it's me sitting at my desk with my iPad plugged into my monitor, or sitting here in the studio using the Magic Keyboard, or if I'm on the couch in tablet mode, the iPad is where I do all my writing, my planning, my research. That's where I do all of that. So I keep my Action Cut shortcut, the one that has the menu of all my shortcuts, right in the dock of my iPad. I can run that and then select Capture Cut right from there. This video is sponsored by Akiflow. Akiflow is a productivity service that binds all others together. The way this works is you set up integrations. This includes options like Google Calendar, Todoist, Notion, Trello, and more. Plus there's support for Zapier and IFTTT if you want to automate stuff. Once you have the integration set up, it pulls all the data from those different services so you can see everything in one place. All your calendar events and tasks are here. They can all work together. You can mark tasks as completed, view projects, and open up calendar appointments. There is a universal inbox where all of your events and tasks go from different services you may be using. This gives you a one-stop place to see everything in your life. Akiflow gives you an intuitive time-blocking platform for you to lay out your schedule and make sure nothing falls through the cracks. With this, I can lay out all of my tasks and see a visual representation of when they all need to be completed. In Akiflow, there is a command bar so you can quickly add task or calendar events. You can also jump to a specific view, edit events, change settings, and more. Akiflow also offers an exclusive one-to-one onboarding so you can get set up with an expert. I love the idea of having something that ties all of these different services together. Right now, too many productivity apps are in their own silos, and this kind of brings things together. I'm going to put some links in the description below so you can go check out Akiflow. My thanks to Akiflow for sponsoring this video. For me, once a note is captured, it gets organized or dealt with, meaning if it's something I need to order or pick up at a store, I do that, or file it away into the proper folder. Personally, I'm much more of a folder person than a tag person. I use folders as a filing system to keep things organized. Then we'll use search to pull up something quickly. Being able to find stuff is just as important as to writing things down, and sometimes I will add keywords for a search if I know a note might need that. Now, you might have seen from my dock, I do have a couple of other writing apps installed. Drafts is an app I use for text snippets. This is like text I copy and might need to save for a bit, and because iPad OS doesn't have a clipboard manager, I need to put it somewhere. I also use this for template stuff like video descriptions and posts. Nothing long-term goes into drafts. Just text snippets and like temporary text that isn't note-taking or anything at all. It's just like, hey, I need to put this text someplace else, but I need to either fill it out a little bit more or just save it for like an hour or two. I also use GoodNotes. When filming my videos, I export them as PDF to GoodNotes and then use that as a shot list for B-roll. It's really nice to be able to mark up a script as I'm filming. Again, no notes or anything long-term gets put in here. My girlfriend and I use Apple Notes to share information. We have notes about house projects, media we want to watch, and a shared grocery list. This is stuff I wish I could put in Obsidian, but Obsidian is not good for collaboration or real-time working together at all. But at the end of the day, any notes, any information, or anything that needs to get saved, I make sure there is a copy of it in Obsidian. So, like I said, note-taking is one pillar of my productivity system. The other pillar is task management. These two go hand in hand for me. While note-taking has all the information and details, task management is the list of things I need to complete. I've been using the app Things for task management for years. I've tried all the other apps, but I always come back to Things. The way it's laid out, shortcut support, feature set, and of course the design is perfect for the way I work. Just like note-taking, I capture everything. With Things, this usually means dumping tasks into the inbox. I will go through the inbox a couple of times a week and either complete tasks or add metadata like project or a date to them so they can get completed at a later time. Also, like my note-taking setup, I have a shortcut for dumping tasks. This uses the quick entry action for Things. I can just type a task and dump it into the inbox folder, or if I have time in the moment, I can add metadata right there. It also supports adding links if there is a Safari page open. Really handy for needing to order something or an article I might want to read later. In Things, I use the area and project feature to break stuff up. To me, areas are parts of my life that will never be completed, like personal tasks, work, video projects, and more. Projects are stuff with an end goal in mind. That way, you can mark them as complete at the end. Projects can be nested in areas. Due to the fact you can only make headings in projects, I have a few projects like house and sponsorships that are projects and not areas. I use the headings as sort of a Kanban board to show what is active and what is on hold. I've also started using Things as a read it later and bookmarking app. After all, I kind of treat read it later and bookmarking apps as task managers. You know, you save something in there, you go in there at a later time, you read it, and then you mark it as completed. Being able to save links and recall them quickly is really important to my research method. Things has a great built-in search feature, so I can quickly find articles, app, piece of hardware, or whatever I've saved. You just swipe down to bring up the search field, or if you have a hardware keyboard attached, you can hit Command F. Of course, I built a shortcut for saving links into Things. For this shortcut, it looks to see what the URL you are saving. If it sees that it has an App Store URL, it will automatically save it to my apps project. If it doesn't see that App Store URL, it then asks which category I would like to save it to. I have a Read It Later project for articles and a gear project for stuff I want to buy or check out. I've been really enjoying using Things as a bookmarking app. When I'm done with something, I just mark it as completed and move on. Now, I know some people like to use a calendar as a task manager, and that's totally fine if that's what works for you. For me personally, most of my tasks are due on a specific day, but not at a specific time, so calendar appointments end up becoming arbitrary. For me, calendar appointments are tasks that have to be done at a specific time. So like a meeting or taking somebody to an airport. For me, a big part of using any calendar app is it needs to have the calendar sets feature. I really like the way Fantastical handles this. You can program a bunch of calendar sets and swap between them really easily. This allows you to filter what's visible, so whether you want to see work calendars or personal calendars, or for me, I have what's a secret calendar that has like embargo and appointments and stuff on there that I don't want to leak and cause issues. Now, while I like Fantastical, the built-in calendar app actually has support for calendar sets, so you can just use that if you want. Of course, there are other productivity apps I use, but the point of this video that I'm trying to drive home is I figured out, for me at least, that there are two core pillars for me that's kind of holding everything up: note-taking and task management. all of those other apps can go away. As long as I have a note-taking app and a task manager app, I can do my work. And now I said I like Obsidian, I like things, but I could use the built-in reminders and notes app if need be. I just like the particulars of Obsidian and things. So that's it. That is the core of my productivity system. I want to hear from you all. What is your productivity system? What works for you? My thanks to Akiflow for sponsoring this video. If you like it, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great day.